My name is Robin Black. I'm the VP Exploration for BMC Minerals. BMC is currently a private company, but we are working on developing the Kudzakaya project and the ABM mine in south central Yukon. So today I'll run through a few topics, including some corporate items, as well as some exploration near-term strategies and objectives. Some important information, mostly referencing our reports and various documents filed on CDAR. Even though we're private, you can still find quite a bit of information on us on CDAR. So these are the highlights I'll be touching on in the talk. We'll go through the project itself, a bit about the management team, what we've done to achieve our licensing, where we're at in that licensing process, and as I mentioned, an overview of the regional land position and our property geology and focus in the near term on our expanding the resources. So at a glance, we are a Canadian company. We're private. It's formed on the basis of an alliance between the GNRI, Global Natural Resource Investments out of London, and an executive team based in Perth with previous track records in mining and development of similar deposit styles in Western Australia, namely VMS, polymetallic mines. Our principal assets are all in Yukon in the Finlayson district. Primarily that's the Kudzakaya project consisting of the ABM mine, proposed mine. We also have an option on the Kona deposit about 30 kilometers south of us, and a couple of significant properties in the Wolf and Pelly, which adjoins the formerly operating Yukon zinc Wolverine mine. The district itself has yielded several VMS deposits. Only the Wolverine has been exploited so far, and we're in the midst of permitting our ABM mine. So the mine itself, it was discovered by Caminco in the mid-90s. It actually went through the CIA process and was granted a Type A water license, which at the time allowed the project to start moving forward into development. Caminco shelved it in the late 90s. We purchased it in 2015. We updated the mine plan a little bit, so primarily that was changing from a subaqueous tailing storage facility to a dry stack facility, as well as improving some of the water quality management and just sort of updates for the times. We've also managed to sign 5 contracts for the majority of the concentrates to be produced at the mine. So we're well on the way on the commercial aspects. And the initial mine life is 9 to 10 years, but if you know about VMS mines and projects, they tend to keep giving. They're well known for occurring in clusters and having good expansion potential on the resources and reserves therein. So the 9 to 10 year mine life is a starting position for us, and if I do my job well and correctly, I anticipate that will extend quite a bit. So, but all the numbers you'll see in this presentation are based around that 10-year mine life and the DFS that we've produced on the project. So as I mentioned, some of our significant counterparties, GNRI, Global Natural Resources Investment Fund, formerly Barclays Resource Investment Fund. Orion has taken a portion of the company as well, and 2 of the major offtake partners are Glencore and Trafigura. So quite well-known, reputable major organizations. Here's a snapshot of our team, a diverse group of people. The fellas on the top left are all our Perth-based executives, and the rest of the team is based here in Canada, either in Vancouver or in Yukon, between Whitehorse, Ross, and Watson Lake. So we tend to think we operate with ESG credentials before ESG was as buzzy as it is today. In terms of environment, we've received a couple awards from the government of Yukon for our environmental and community performance. We also are if you're a critical mineral producer or forecast to be a producer. If you were in the session this morning, you might have heard a little bit about that. Because it is a polymetallic, so 5 commodities produced. All of them are quite high grade, and collectively it makes for a substantially high grade deposit. Our carbon footprint becomes quite low per unit of material produced or economic value. In terms of social, as I mentioned, we do have 2 of the critical minerals on the list, copper and zinc. We also have multiple agreements, both commercial and social, signed with the local communities. There's a SEPA that's in place that was initially signed by Caminco when they shortly after discovery, modernized in 2004, and we signed an LOI to update it yet again in 2019. Beyond that, all of our contractors are obligated to adhere to the principles within that SEPA. It's written into our service agreements that we distribute to the contractors, and so they are obligated to live up to that performance obligations and report that back to us. And then, of course, governance, we feel we have well-established policies, procedures to ensure that we're governing in a fair and just way, and we are guided by an overarching business integrity framework, which is a quite large document that you must read when you join the company. So, our feasibility study, updated in October 2020. This is the resource and reserve statement. As you can see, in terms of reserves, we're just under 16 million tons. As I mentioned, our grades are quite good, quite substantial across all 5 commodities that we'll be producing: 138 grams per ton silver, 1.3 grams gold, 5.8% zinc, 0.9% copper, and 1.7% lead. Those will be distributed amongst 3 concentrates: a copper concentrate, a zinc concentrate, and a high precious metals concentrate, which contains most of the lead and silver and gold. We also, as mentioned, have an option over the Kona deposit. Sits at about 10 million tons combined, about 1.5% and 0.7 grams per ton gold. So in terms of the commodity mix, 2 important takeaways on this slide. On the left, you'll see the LME and the Shanghai stockpiles for zinc. Normally, they're about 400 to 800,000 tons. Last fall, they dipped quite substantially to what equates to about 2.5 days worth of global consumption. And just illustrating the point that zinc is well and truly a critical mineral, and there can be supply shortages on the horizon. And so the ABM deposit or Kudzakaya project, as designed today, would be Canada's largest zinc producer were it to come into production, so hopefully contribute to this shortfall. In terms of revenue distribution by commodity, that's this guy right here, ends up being about 45% precious metals and 55% base metals when you combine them all. And of course, as commodities fluctuate, that may change. Now, with this, and you'll see in the next slide, there's kind of a rule of thumb or a demonstrated historical relationship between precious and base metals. Precious will go up, base will go down, and vice versa. So it's a natural hedge against any one commodity taking a nosedive. And here, as I was mentioning, you'll see that sensitivity analysis. The numbers kind of speak for themselves, but of note is the 5-year low, assuming all 5 metals to be produced are low, which is very unlikely. The project still has a cash flow margin of about 30% and still turns a profit and can continue to operating, right? And that's what we want to show, we want to see for reassure communities, governments that the project is robust and can withstand significant economic downturn. Now, where does that leave money directly into Canada and the local communities? Well, this is from an analysis done on the fees completed by Ernst & Young. So it's an audited third-party analysis. The project is projected to produce $538 million in direct taxes and royalties to both Yukon and Canada. And in addition to the taxes and royalty numbers, the study they did indicates that there will be 400 equivalent full-time equivalent jobs directly created by the project, and the flow on from that in the community in Whitehorse, Yukon, will be another 400 full-time equivalent jobs. So as I mentioned, we do try to operate to the best standards of local and community involvement. I touched on the SEPA before. It was signed by Cominco, restated in 2004, and then we've confirmed with Casca to update that in an LOI. We do run a scholarship program. When we first took the project, there was many Casca elders and leadership that said we want more than jobs on the shovels. We want people from our communities in management positions and senior positions in the mine. So we implemented a scholarship program for post-secondary students wanting to take mining-related studies, and that's quite broad. I mean, accounting is a mining-related job function. So there's a variety of options there, and we've supported, I want to say, over, Alan's will have the numbers, over $400,000 in scholarships so far. In addition to that, we've signed a traditional knowledge protocol, and most of our supplies that we use on the project for exploration to date are from the local communities. So I touched on this as well earlier about the environmental footprint of the mine. These are numbers, again, third-party numbers, third-party produced graph. And what we've done here is we've taken copper equivalent produced, so that's our unit of value, and measured it against the CO2 produced during the operation of the mine. And all these other companies on here that you see, these are public numbers, publicly available, so they're taken from all their reports, public reports. And you can see that our project, our company, will be one of the lowest greenhouse gas emitters per unit of value. So where do we sit on our timelines and permitting? Well, this is the process in Yukon. We've completed this environmental assessment through the ESSA board. Originally submitted the project application in 2017. Decision document has been issued, which allows the regulators to commence our licensing. And both of our major licenses have also been submitted, the quartz mining license and the Type A water license. The Type A water license is actually open for public comment and review on Waterline, and it's open till the end of this week. So another little bit of history on the timeline. 2015, we acquired it, as I mentioned. 2017, we completed the PFS, submitted our project description to the environmental assessment body in Yukon, YESAB. The DFS was completed in 2020. In 2019, we completed the DFS. We optimized and updated it in 2020. YESAB in the same year issued their final recommendation, and a decision document was awarded in June 2022, stating that the project would be allowed to proceed. And our major mine license applications were submitted in September. So where do we go from here? Well, we don't put dates on our timelines anymore because the timelines have stretched here and there. But this is where we're going from now on. There is a judicial review ongoing into the EA process, which is hearing set for mid-April. We expect a decision in June. Then we'd move on to an optimization study. The quartz mining license, water license, they've already been submitted, as mentioned. And then a final investment decision comes probably early 2023 or June half 24, depending on the above process. So that's the corporate update on the project and the mining itself. But as I mentioned, 10 years, our job to expand that. So what you're looking at here is a map of the Finlayson district. Our claim holdings are shown in green. ABM mine is here. GPF4F is another deposit that we've done a modicum of work on. We haven't put a resource number on it, so it's more of an exploration target at the moment. We've acquired, that's the Kona project down here. Everything else in yellow are other claim holders, but predominantly that's Yukon Zinc. And all told, we comprise about 357 square kilometers of tenure. In terms of geology, the Finlayson district is a well-known Devonian arc system. This is the stratigraphic column here, updated just recently by Matt Manor doing a PhD studies in the district. And what I'd like to highlight here is that there's at least 3 mineralizing events in the district which produce VMS deposits. We've got the Kona that sits out here in the Fire Lake Formation. We've got GP4F down here lower in the Kudzakaya Formation, ABM up a little higher, the focus of the mine, higher in the Kudzakaya Formation, Wolverine above an unconformity, and then ice above that again. And so we control Kona, ABM, GP4F, and in fact, some drilling on our claims down dip of Wolverine has intersected mineralization, so a portion of this mineralized stratigraphy as well. So as I mentioned, we acquired the project in 2015. We set to work doing the studies for an updated PFS and the basis of our mine proposal. We also made a discovery in 2015 which added about 5 million tons to the resource and drilled it off the following year, which was great and exciting. We've done quite a bit of compilation on historical work in the district. It sparked an immense staking rush back in the mid-90s when nearly simultaneously ABM and Wolverine deposits were discovered and resulted in 2 major land packages, which we hold one. But really that exploration came to a grinding halt late 90s when exploration in general sort of took a real nosedive. So the deposit has tremendous potential in terms of under-exploration. That's a term you probably hear a lot, but really these 2 grassroots at surface massive sulfides were discovered. Companies went out, peppered the area in geochem and geological studies, started to do the initial round of exploratory drilling, and then everything kind of stopped. And after that, the ground was mostly staked by Caminco, who more or less shelved the project and the claims that we hold, and Expatriate, who focused all their efforts to drive forward the Wolverine mine. So personally and corporately, we're very excited about this land package and the district in general. So at the property scale, in terms of geology, we've got the prospective rocks here in the pink. I think you can see them as pink on that screen. That's the Kudzakaya felsic volcanic package. There are 2 time horizons where we see mineralization, ABM here up closer to the paleo seafloor, and the GP4F down lower in the package. And so those are our major stratigraphic positions that we chase. We also see some structural control on the mineralization that cross-cuts that package, and it's marked by reactivated, what we interpret as reactivated synvolcanic structures, and we'll zoom in on those next. So it's a bit of a busy map, but the key takeaways here are the deposit in red. The other polygons, the multicolored polygons, are multi-element soil geochem anomalies that are roughly collinear with the structures that bisect the project. Again, they are interpreted as reactivated synvolcanic faults, controlling the mineralization. So our near-term focus is chasing these structures through the prospective KZK stratigraphy and then down dip. So this whole thing dips to the northeast about 30 degrees, and these are the Wind Lake basinal sedimentary rocks, which cover felsic volcanic rocks of the Kudzakaya. So we're going to chase this down dip into the Wind Lake. And the overlaying is just a proposed IP grid that we've developed for the summer work to try and delineate some of these high copper stringer systems that are typical of VMS projects. So zooming in a little more, now we're looking at a copper bismuth soil geochemical anomaly along with some EM conductors and some interesting historical intercepts that were hit in this area. That copper bismuth association is usually associated with high temperature fluids, which would be moving the metals around at the time of volcanism and depositing them in the subsea floor to make these nice, healthy deposits that we're chasing. So a few key indicators. Some of the better intercepts from the late 90s is 6.4 meters at just over 5% copper, percent lead, 5.5% zinc, 140 grams per ton silver, and 2.5 grams per ton gold, which I would love to find something like that again. And in fact, we've hit sniffs of it as recently as 2015 and 2018 in this zone. The mineralization not quite as strong, but I can tell you the alteration was very strong. So another hallmark of these systems is pervasive, intense chlorite alteration associated with some of the stringer mineralization, which you can see in this photo here. So beyond that, that plumbing system down here, the deposit is also open down dip, as I mentioned, underneath the Wind Lake cover. We have intersected some holes down dip on this Krakatoa zone, which carry mineralization, as well as down dip on ABM. But the amount of drilling down dip on this deposit is fairly limited. When Cominco discovered it, they discovered it on the first hole drilled on the property. So that doesn't leave a lot of room for finding more mineralization in areas where there's been some dusters drilled, if you know what I mean. They focused all their efforts into delineating the deposit and developing it towards a mining study. So when we bought the project in 2015, relatively speaking, there was very little exploration done outside of the immediate deposit area. A few holes here and there, but at that point, you're chasing pretty high-level concepts and moving on. So, as I said, we've done a ton of compilation, a lot of desktop work, and have developed some good targeting in and around the deposit. And that's our primary focus here going forward, is this 5-kilometer radius around the proposed mill, right? Start with what you know and work outwards. We also have a modest amount of inferred resources, 800,000 tons, to convert and bring it into the reserves. So that's hopefully a fairly mechanical exercise. And as mentioned, we have the Krakatoa zone open down dip and the ABM zone open down dip. Thank you very much.